All right, so let's take a look at some of the stuff we played with last time. We looked at bouncing, objects, collision, all that stuff. Let's move down. The next section in our particle masterpiece is the field weight section, which is right here. You could see this has gravity amount. So if I turn this to 0 and I run my simulation, you could see they just kind of float in space. Not much gravity. There's force, there's vortex. And actually, if you do this, you can make it look like there's little space particles flying away from a building. If you do that and you go to velocity here and you make sure your normal is at 1 or higher, and then I run this, you can see they just sort of fly out into the universe and slow down, kind of like they do in those space movies. Take your, play with damping and all this other good stuff. Let's put this back to 1. Now if I run this, you can see they fall again. All right, now you might be wondering, well, what's all of the other stuff? You could see there's wind here. Well, we can add different types of force fields. So I'm going to hit Shift A here, and I'm going to go down to, and they call this the admin menu, by the way. So in the admin menu, I'm going to look for force field, and I'm going to start with just wind. And what I'll do is you can actually move this around like this, and I can move it up. Let's go ahead and hit G, and then I'm going to hit R, and then Y for the Y-axis, and just rotate this down. And so what I can do here is I have this, essentially this wind velocity, so that when the objects fall and they start to come towards it, notice it slows down because it's getting close to, actually, I don't think it's, oh, you know what? I've got to adjust that. Let me go to my physics here, and then with my wind selected, or actually, there we go. I can increase the strength, and that's what these rings are. Now let's hit spacebar. You can see now that they fall into the wind and they're being pushed. So it's a good idea to kind of be like, you can kind of tame out this wind a little bit. So maybe it's here. So as they fall, then they fall into the wind. So maybe, like you have an animation with a window opening and then they blow and then window closing. So you can actually see there's a key mark here. You can key the strength of this wind. So let's say at 0, you want there to be no wind. So I'm going to key that. And then as our simulation goes on, maybe the window opens here. I'll key that 0 so it holds. And then there's a slight blow of wind that goes up for 60 seconds to something like this. I'll key that. So there's no wind for a while, and then slowly the wind sort of blows that stuff down. I don't know, just cool, coming up with cool ideas for these neat features. Another thing to note is you could leave it long, and you can actually go inside of your settings up here on your object, and you can go to your particles and then go back down here, and you could adjust the amount of wind or how all of them affect it. See how this is like all? Or you could just say, okay, you know what, I want the wind to be this much. So now they're falling and it's just, just not that strong. So something like this. So it's just kind of a combination of both. Sometimes you have to hit spacebar and let it rerun the simulation. So this is your wind setting here. All right, let's add some other ones just to play with. So right now we have no wind in there. Our objects are just bouncing. So what I can do is I'm just going to click this little green arrow so we're looking at it from the side view. And then what you can do is hold Shift and middle mouse click to pan. I'm going to hit Shift A, and I'm just going to go to force field here. And then let's see, we can also add force. And if I move this here and I rerun my simulation, you could see that as they bounce, let's actually go, let's make sure that it's there. Yeah, it is there. Let's see, I'm going to move that a little bit more inside, and then the strength isn't that, I don't know, let's try that. So I really increased the force here. Doesn't seem like it's pushing those particles. Actually, let's also go inside of here and let's see, viewport display. Here's show emitter. And I want to display the rendered. Maybe we should do 200 or something. Maybe it just needs to be much higher, the force. Oh yeah, that's too high. Yeah, it was just too low. Let's do 100 here. I just wanted to push away as it gets to this object. I'm just showing you, like, you can see here. There we go. It kind of slows it down a little bit. So it's just playing with these values. Let's kind of look at it in a 3D view. Kind of increase the strength. And you can kind of see you're almost creating like a little funnel in the center. It's pushing them off the side. So this could be something cool where if you want to, I mean, you do have collision, you could put a rock there, but maybe something like this where you can have it funnel off. The one that I like a lot too, I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Hit Shift A, force field. You can add a vortex. This is kind of like a tornado. So as the pieces fall, they get sucked into this tornado here. So I'm going to hit S, kind of scale that up a little bit. So I just kind of increased that strength, and now you can see they're all getting sucked in. So this could be like a Ghostbusters thing. Again, I'm not going to know the exact value because it's based on the scale of these objects, but this could be something else that you do, like in one of your projects, you have things blow up and then, man, that is really strong. I made it 10. I'm going to move it all the way out here. So that way wow. See if maybe if they fall, they're just kind of getting pulled in. Anyway, I think that's cool. They get, it's kind of a way to pull them into a specific point. So let's just pull it up here and see if maybe we could do something like, you can animate like a tornado. And the gravity, because they have gravity on it, that's why they're still falling. Anyway, I think that's pretty cool. So one of the last things I want to show you is just how to bake this simulation. Because if you have a lot of things in the scene, when it comes time to render it, Unity for me tends to crash if I don't bake it. And what baking does is it takes all of the information in the scene and it bakes it to the timeline. So I want you to go ahead and click on these 3 dots here. And then under all of this, I want you to look for the cache settings. It's generally the last one. And down here, you can see there's a bake physics simulation here. So when I do this, I generally go to the first frame and then I just hit bake. And then I let it bake through. And what you'll notice too is this is going to run much smoother. On my computer, which is pretty powerful, you're not going to notice a big difference. But on yours, which if you have something that's more of an entry-level MacBook or PC or whatever, this helps a great deal. And the way that you know it baked successfully is you can see there's a red line down here. Now, something to notice, say you look back and you're like, oh, I don't want to adjust this anymore. But if you go back into physics, notice this is all grayed out, and that's because this is all baked out. So this is just something you want to make sure that you're aware of. So if you want to go back and make changes, you want to go ahead and hit delete bake. And now when you go back into here, you can see rendering and physics is still active. And you can go back and retweak your simulation. And I think, to be honest with you, like these are pretty much the most common stuff you're going to use. And yeah, I think from now we can just kind of go back and start looking at how we can add particles and stuff to our building scene that we were doing before, which is like our little destroyed building.